The atmosphere around the club feels oddly calm, yet restless at the very same time, as if everyone senses that something significant is about to shift. With another match day drawing closer, the focus naturally turns to the work that has been done over the past few weeks, especially now that the team enters what looks like the final chapter of a short but meaningful spell shaped by the steady and experienced presence of Martin O'Neill. There is a different sort of expectation in the air, a mix of gratitude, curiosity, and that familiar hunger supporters always have to see things sorted on the pitch without delay. And as the meeting with Dundee approaches, the feeling grows that this fixture will not simply be another night of football, but an emotional farewell for a manager who managed to reignite the competitive spirit of the squad with an intensity few imagined was possible in such a short space of time. The conversations over the past days have centered heavily around O'Neill himself and the questions fired at him again and again. When he is asked whether this brief spell has sparked a desire to return to the dugout permanently, he always replies with that composed calmness that hides a far deeper reflection. He says he needs time, that he needs to step back a little and think, as if he is trying to work out whether there is still room for him in a game that has changed at a frightening pace. And when the subject shifts to the possibility of him staying around the club in some capacity, his tone remains respectful and direct. He insists it all depends on the manager who is coming in next, that he will give his opinion if it is requested, but he would never place himself in the position of advising anyone. The idea of interfering in another manager's work simply does not align with the way he sees things. That honesty has always been part of who he is, and perhaps that is why so many players speak about him with such natural respect. And it is exactly for that reason that the match against Dundee has taken on a symbolic importance. For the team, it is a chance to keep the momentum going, to secure another win at home, and stretch the run to 5 victories in a row. For the supporters, it is an opportunity to show appreciation. It might not be a packed night, especially with winter biting hard and Dundee not exactly being the kind of opponent that fills the stands, but still plenty will want to be there. They know it is a deserved farewell, built in a short spell that ended up leaving a surprisingly strong mark. A manager who arrived during a difficult moment, found a worn-out group, and still managed to bring everyone together around one simple aim: compete with character. Within the squad, the impact of these weeks has also been clear. Callum McGregor has spoken about it with his usual clarity, explaining that the team fell into a very practical rhythm match after match without much time to think about the noise swirling outside. Recovering, training, and stepping back onto the pitch became almost mechanical, but it is the sort of routine that works when the results keep coming, and when you are winning, uncertainty becomes far easier to deal with. Football often boils down to that: stick to the rhythm, trust the process, and leave the structural decisions to those above. But perhaps the most striking example of this period has been the growth of Ari Engels. Still very young, he carried the weight of a sizable transfer fee and expectations that at times seemed far bigger than he was ready for. Over the past year, there were doubts, hasty criticism, and that impatience that modern football fuels so easily. Yet with time, guidance, and the right dose of trust, he finally started to show everything many believed he had in him. McGregor himself mentioned recently how the youngster has the right attitude, the right spark, and the perfect mentality to keep developing. It has been obvious on the pitch too, especially with that goal against Hibernian, which looked more like a release of pressure than a celebration. Amusingly, he did not even realize he had scored at first and needed someone to tell him. a reflection of the knock he had taken in the build-up. These wee stories tend to capture the reality of growing up in a big club, moments of pain, doubt, and suddenly out of nowhere, a jolt of hope. There is also a human side that comes through anytime Luke McCowan speaks. His natural calmness gives every comment a straightforward, sincere feel. He talks about the atmosphere, about the responsibility of wearing the shirt, and also about the way O'Neill arrived and immediately put everyone's feet back on the ground. The tale about the lap of the pitch after the match against Falkirk became almost an inside joke because while the players completed their round of appreciation, the manager looked at them as if he were asking whether they had just lifted a trophy. That sort of dry humor, that candid honesty, helped break barriers in the dressing room and made many understand that with him, every match matters just as much as the next. It is fascinating to think that when O'Neill first stepped in on a temporary basis, many doubted how he would adapt to a modern group full of younger players used to a gentler style of man management. But those concerns disappeared almost as quickly as they appeared. A good manager is always a good manager, regardless of how long he has been away from the touchline. And in these few weeks, he managed to get the best out of each player, found solutions, restored confidence, and made the team believe again. The team. There is something almost poetic in that. A manager with a huge legacy returning only for a short spell, yet managing to leave another significant mark on the club. What he leaves behind is not only a string of victories, but a sense of emotional steadiness in a turbulent moment. And perhaps that is why so many now talk about his legacy as something even stronger than before. Some already claim that since the days of Jock Stein, no manager has carved out such an influence on the club's identity, and that thought gained weight simply because he arrived in a fragile moment and made everything look simple, even when it was anything but. As tomorrow's match approaches, everyone seems aware that this short journey with him is nearing its end, yet at the same time, there is a natural excitement about what comes next, a curiosity about the new leadership and how certain players might grow even more under fresh ideas. Now, Ingles, for instance, looks ready to make a leap. McCowan carries himself with confidence and maturity. McGregor keeps the squad steady. The atmosphere is one of transition, but a calm transition, fueled by the feeling that something new is about to begin, even if tomorrow night still belongs entirely to O'Neill. As the build-up to the Dundee match carries on, there is a strange mix of calm and tension hanging over the training ground, that kind of feeling folk get when everyone senses something is about to shift. The players move through their drills with a steady concentration, yet there is a different quietness between them, as though each lad is carrying a thought he is not quite ready to share. It is no sadness, and it is not exactly excitement either. It feels more like an awareness that they are living through the final moments of a wee era that, short as it was, left a deep mark on the squad. When people speak about transitions in football, they often imagine long stretches filled with chaos, but sometimes it only takes a handful of weeks for a manager to change the way a team sees itself and the way it meets the game. And that is precisely the feeling spreading through the camp as O'Neill prepares to step away. Over the past days, a few players have admitted that they are still trying to understand how someone who arrived so quietly and so fast can leave with so much already rearranged. They chuckle about wee moments from sessions, remembering blunt comments that at first felt a bit sharp, but now sound almost like the words of a mentor. There is something very Scottish about the way the squad speaks of him, with that dry humour softened by a sense of respect. The same way folk might describe a strict teacher who never raised his voice, yet still had every pupil standing to attention. That image became a symbol of these last weeks, because O'Neill never tried to be more than himself. He turned up, carried a firm presence, and set things straight without making a song and dance of it. While the press keeps pushing for answers about what comes next, as if every inch of the story needs to be squeezed into a headline, inside the club, the mood is different. The biggest worry is not the distant future, but how the team will show itself tomorrow. The players want the progress made to look deliberate, not accidental. They want to prove the discipline built in these matches can remain even after he is gone. It feels like an invisible test, not to impress the support, but to convince themselves that they genuinely grew during this spell. Every player knows how easily old habits can creep back when a short chapter of leadership comes to an end, but no one in the squad seems willing to let that happen. Callum McGregor has been central in this stage, not only because of the armband, but because of how he reads the moment. He speaks about responsibility with that quiet authority Scottish captains often have, without grand speeches or polished lines, only simple truth delivered with honesty. He admits these days carry a confusing emotion, but he also reminds the group that football is settled on the pitch, not in the feelings that build around it. That practical outlook has helped keep everyone grounded, avoiding the temptation to drift with outside narratives and ensuring the whole squad remains fixed on one aim. Play well, compete properly, show real character. At the same time, younger players like Ari Engels and Luke McCowan have continued to push forward at a pace that feels quicker, precisely because of the transition happening around them. Engels has shown a maturity that surprised many, especially after that recent goal that finally pulled him out of a rough spell. There is something sincere in the way he celebrates without fuss, almost sheepish, as though he is still adjusting to the attention slowly gathering around him. It is in these wee moments that the influence of an experienced manager becomes clear, someone who knows when to give a young lad freedom and when to demand just a touch more. And despite the pressure, the boy has handled everything with the kind of mindset any incoming manager would be delighted to work with. McCowan, on the other hand, has become the calmest voice in the room. He speaks about the daily graft with ease, describes the dressing room atmosphere without dressing it up, and always finds a way to appreciate what the group has been building. His honesty makes every word sound genuine, and that truthfulness seems to be one of the reasons the squad has stayed balanced during a moment that could easily have turned messy. He laughs about the wee inside stories, like that over-the-top lap of the pitch that made O'Neill raise an eyebrow, but behind the joke, there is a message. He understood the manager's style from day one, that blend of demand and understanding that few can manage so naturally. As the match night creeps closer, even the stadium begins to take on a different meaning. Celtic Park always carries a unique electricity, but there are certain fixtures where the air feels heavier, as though the crowd knows they are witnessing a chapter closing. It might not be a packed night, the cold might scare off a few, and Dundee is not the sort of opponent that usually drags in a full house. But those who do come will feel something special in the atmosphere. Supporters in Scotland have a sharp sense for recognizing when someone has given everything they had, even over a short spell, and that turns a farewell into something more human than dramatic. What stands out the most, though, is the unexpected sense of optimism for what lies ahead. The squad is not nervous about the new leadership. Instead, there is a real curiosity to see how the next phase might lift what has already begun. Players know football is made of cycles, and each cycle brings its own chances. Engels looks ready to take an even bigger leap. McCowan seems prepared to shoulder more responsibility. McGregor remains the heartbeat, the steadying force, and behind each of them is the confidence that the foundations laid under O'Neill will not vanish with his departure. The manager himself likely never imagined he would be so influential after so many years away from the touchline. Yet football is full of these strange ironies. Sometimes a temporary stay ends up feeling more significant than a long-term project. And as the team sharpens its final details for tomorrow, it is obvious that they are not simply playing for points on the table, but for memory, for respect, for that quiet loyalty that only grows when admiration is genuine. The match may last 90 minutes, but the manager's mark will echo far longer. And while the players go through their final routines from set-piece rehearsals to last-minute tweaks, there is a shared feeling that this group is not looking to perform a farewell ritual. They want to show personality. They want to show unity. They want to prove these past weeks were not a fortunate streak, but the start of something that, under a new voice, might grow even stronger. Tomorrow night, under the lights at Celtic Park, it will not be just another match. It will be a living reflection of these intense weeks of quiet rebuilding and renewed discipline, a night that may well signal the close of a short era and the beginning of one the club hopes will be even more powerful. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. Whispers are swirling through the Scottish football scene tonight after news broke that Brereton Díaz has reportedly agreed to a sudden move to Celtic. Sources close to the player suggest that negotiations were lightning fast, leaving fans and pundits alike scratching their heads at just how quickly this deal seems to have materialized. Brereton Díaz, whose name has been bandied about in transfer speculation for months, appears to have finally found common ground with the Glasgow Giants, sparking a frenzy of chatter across social media and in the corridors of Scottish football. The striker, known for his sharp eye in front of goal and the kind of agility that can unsettle even the most disciplined defenses, has long been on the radar of clubs seeking to boost their attacking options. Celtic, ever eager to maintain their edge domestically and in European competitions, are rumoured to have moved decisively, sensing an opportunity to snatch him before rival clubs could mount a serious bid. Insiders hint that the discussions may have been kept deliberately under wraps, with representatives from both sides working behind closed doors to hammer out terms that reportedly suited all parties. Fans of the Hoops are already abuzz, imagining Brereton Díaz donning the iconic green and white hoops, while pundits speculate on how his arrival could shift the tactical balance in the squad. The timing of the alleged agreement has added fuel to the fire, with speculation rife that this could be just the beginning of a series of moves aimed at reinforcing the squad for the months ahead. Meanwhile, rivals' supporters are watching nervously, aware that a player of his caliber could alter the complexion of the league if he indeed completes the switch. Despite the flurry of excitement, the lack of an official confirmation from the club keeps the rumour mill grinding at full pace. Those close to the situation suggest that all signs point to a swift announcement But as is often the case in Scottish football, nothing is ever truly set in stone until the paperwork is signed and the player steps onto the training pitch in new colours. For now, the whispers are enough to keep tongues wagging, with every tweet, post, and rumour seemingly adding layers to what could be one of the more sensational moves of the season. Whether Brereton Díaz will prove the difference Celtic are looking for remains to be seen, but the mere possibility of this transfer has already sent shockwaves through the league. Supporters are holding their breath, rival clubs are sharpening their pencils, and the Scottish football community is abuzz with a single question. Is Brereton Díaz the next big gamble to pay off at Celtic? Only time will tell, but the rumour has certainly caught fire. Hello, fan. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.